Hello to you. I do hope you're well. Welcome to my latest teaching update here on YouTube. And I have got a little bit of news for you today, guys, because I have just been appointed as head of year 8 from September. Now, this is such a privilege. I really do mean that. And I really cannot tell you how much this means to me. I feel that this encapsulates why I went into teaching in the first place, if that makes sense. You know, I went into teaching because I wanted to make the biggest difference possible, and to, I know it sounds cliche, and to change lives, you know, to have that impact and make that difference in terms of changing young lives, so that young people can go out into the world and succeed, thrive and flourish. And so I feel this is such a privilege and a brilliant opportunity to do that, if that makes sense. You know, to have 180 students who I can champion, hopefully inspire, support, challenge, and ensure that as they go through the school and then leave the school, they have the best experience possible, they make the maximum progress possible, and they receive the very best pastoral support possible. And actually, there was a recent TED talk, I'm not sure if you've seen it, by Rita Pearson, on the importance of every student having a champion in schools. And one of the best lines from this was, she said, "Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists they become the best they can possibly be." And for me, that is what it's all about. It's, you know, supporting and challenging every student to become the best they can possibly be, you know, to fulfill their potential, and so go out into the world and flourish, thrive and succeed. So yes, I really am excited to be starting this new role, and I really hope to make a big difference in this role. And so as I sort of look forward to September, what I thought I would do is just share with you some of the information in terms of the process, in terms of applying for the position, and then what I'm hoping to do in this role as head of year. But I think before that, just to give you a bit of context on why I wanted to go for the role in the first place, I had, you know, the most amazing head of year in year 8 myself. So when I was in year 8, as I've said here on the channel, I was hospitalised with anorexia, and I had an amazing team who supported me at school, led by the head of year, Mrs. Mulsdale, and then also my form tutor, of course, the family liaison officer, and, you know, other important key figures within the school. And I saw firsthand through that experience just what a difference teachers and pastoral leaders can make. I was the recipient of that amazing support, and they not only saved my life through their early intervention, but they then also totally transformed my life through their support and that pastoral care that I received. And so for me, it really does mean a lot to be starting as a head of year 8, because I know that my head of year 8 totally changed my life, and so I see this as a chance to pay it forwards, if you see what I mean, and hopefully have that same positive impact for the young people in my care. I'm also really excited to be starting as head of year 8, because last year I had a year 7 form. So I've had my year 7 form, 7B, and that has been the most amazing experience. I've absolutely loved being their form tutor in terms of setting the standard for greatness, as we call it in our form, and, you know, seeing them grow, develop and flourish over the past year. And so I'm absolutely delighted that I will actually be continuing to champion them and be their head of year as they progress through the year groups, because that was the one thing for me when this application opportunity came up. I thought, I really don't want to leave my form, which is why I am so happy to be taking on head of year 8, and that is why I went for head of year 8, because it means I will be able to keep my form within my year group, if that makes sense. And I really am excited to see them grow, develop and achieve in, you know, the years to come as they travel through the school. And the plan is, with these appointments, that you will take your year group through to year 11. So that's another reason, actually, I think it's brilliant to be taking on head of year 8, because it's an opportunity to lay those foundations, those habits for excellence, as I like to call them, in terms of instilling those good habits, routines and rituals, so that by the time my year group gets to year 11, you know, they are ready for success in their GCSEs and beyond. So yes, that's kind of my motivation for going for the role, and why I'm so delighted to be taking on the head of year 8 role and having this opportunity to lead the year group, to champion all of the students and to ensure that they become the best they can possibly be. And one of my key focus points really is a mantra I've been using for maybe a year and a half now with my students in my RE lessons, and then also with my form group, which is that greatness is a choice. And this is a mantra that I picked up when I was doing what's called a contrasting school experience, and I had the privilege of going into another school and seeing how they do things. And one of the teachers used a mantra called greatness is a choice, and I saw her using this, and I saw the impact it was having on the students, and I thought, this is amazing. This is such a brilliant way to have a really positive attitude to behaviour management and behaviour for learning, but also a really brilliant way to motivate, inspire and empower your students to become their very best and go out into the world and succeed. You know, I want my students, I want my year group to be the very best in Britain. I want them to be going out into the world as leaders, doctors, lawyers, to be fulfilling their full potential and be making a brilliant contribution to society and the common good. So I heard this mantra that greatness is a choice, and I returned back to my teaching at my school and I said, I need to make this a thing. This needs to be my mantra in the classroom. I've been inspired to inspire my students with this notion of greatness and the fact that it's a choice, which really emphasises, doesn't it, the importance of taking responsibility for your own success, which I think is really important to instill in young people, that, you know, your behaviour is a choice. And so if you make the right choices, you will achieve great things. And so one of the big focus points for me with my year group, or maybe the big focus point I should say, is that greatness is a choice. And I've created a little acronym which sets out what it means to be great, because I'm a big believer in making the implicit explicit, in terms of it's really important as teachers and educators to be really explicit about your expectations and about the reasons behind them. You know, it's really important to be setting out what your expectations are, why you have those expectations, and then how they can be met. You know, we really need to be as explicit and as clear as possible. So for me, obviously, I have the idea that greatness is a choice, and everybody I teach, and now everybody in my year group, is going to choose greatness. And so to be great means, and as you can imagine, I've got this on A3 posters, on PowerPoints, I've put this in my letter to parents, you know, this is our manifesto for, you know, greatness. And so great means, G means give it 100%. You know, I want my students to be putting in maximum effort. And that is derived from Dr. Carol Dweck and her ideas on growth mindset, the idea that effort is everything. You know, effort is the key to mastery. We don't need perfection. You know, I don't believe in perfectionism at all, but I do believe in putting in the effort. It's all about trying your best. You know, as my mum used to say when I was doing my exams at school, as long as you've tried your best, that is all that matters. And so I want my students giving it 100%, no matter what they're doing. I want them to do their best, to try their best. And as I say, it's all about effort and putting in that effort. R then stands for, in case you can't see, respect everybody. You know, this is so important for me, that you are respecting everybody at all times. This is an essential non-negotiable for me, that you are respecting people, that, you know, you are treating people as you would like to be treated, that you are never using discriminatory language, can't say the word, but you know what I mean, and that in every interaction my students have, they are being respectful, they are treating others as they would like to be treated, they are showing good manners, and they are being considerate of others. You know, kindness is key. So yes, for me, it's all about respecting everybody, whether that's, you know, fellow students, members of staff, or members of the wider community. Respect is essential. There are no excuses, are there, for not being respectful. There is no justification for not showing somebody respect. You know, I can kind of understand if you forgot your PE kit one week, or you've been late to a lesson one day, you know, because of the bus. I can understand that. These things do happen. But I cannot ever understand, I cannot ever accept somebody being disrespectful. For me, that is, you know, a code red. That is a red line, and it will always be sanctioned because it's wrong. You know, you treat others as you would like to be treated, don't you? Whether you have a difference of opinion, whether they, you know, seem to be very different to you, or whatever they've actually done is irrelevant. You are responsible for respecting everybody you interact with, and so that's going to be a big focus for me. Number 3 then, E, means to engage positively. You know, I want my students to have really positive habits for learning. So you may have seen the SLAN acronym, which I'll be using in the classroom. So in every lesson, I expect my students to sit up, listen, ask and answer questions, never shout out, and track the speaker. So, you know, I want every student in my year group to be engaging positively, to have an open mind, to be ambitious, you know, and to be enthusiastic about what they're doing, to have that growth mindset, to take that positive outlook. Just drawn on my face with pen there, not very good at all. But we must continue. A then is to arrive on time. You know, attendance is so important, isn't it? It's such a good habit to get into as well. You know, my grandparents always arrive early for everything, and I think it matters. You know, even if the trains aren't arriving on time these days, you've got to make sure you try and arrive on time. It's such an important thing. You know, you can't swan into the workplace late, unless you're working from home, of course, but you know, you can't swan into the workplace late and say, oh, I slept in. You know, we need to ensure that when we're in school, we're setting, you know, our students up for success in terms of those positive habits and those good manners, which involve arriving on time for every lesson that you have. And then finally, T, really important, take responsibility. Every single student in my year group and every student I teach will be expected to take responsibility, whether that is for, you know, doing their homework or whether that is for being accountable for their conduct. I don't like excuses. I think it's really important that you are prepared to take responsibility for yourself. You know, as John Stuart Mill, one of my favourite philosophers, says, over his own body and mind, the individual is sovereign. You must take responsibility for your conduct. You know, don't put the blame on other people. Don't say, but what about them? Focus on yourself and on being fully accountable for your own conduct, your actions, your success. You know, we've got to take responsibility for our own success. So yes, that is greatness, or being great, and that is going to be a key focus for me in terms of what I expect from my students. And of course, you know, those expectations apply to me as well, and of course to my team of tutors and, you know, year group leaders, because it is really important, I think, that we are all committed to that same culture of greatness and achieving the very best, isn't it? And, you know, for me, that means making sure every student makes the maximum progress possible so they can fulfill their full potential, and ensuring that they receive, you know, the very best pastoral care. You know, I'm really passionate about the importance of safeguarding and of supporting students, you know, especially, I think, you know, as we emerge from COVID, we have a real mental health crisis on our hands, don't we? It is really important that we are supporting students to develop mental health awareness and, you know, mental well-being as a whole. And a really important thing for me, of course, because of my past experience with the eating disorder anorexia, is ensuring that every student is supported. It's about building that team around the child so that we create an environment where students receive the support and, you know, that they can also be more proactive in looking after their mental health. You know, obviously it is important that we're not just responding to mental health issues that arise, but that we're actually putting it on the agenda in the first place, so that, you know, our students have a toolkit available to them in terms of what to do when things do get tough or do get difficult. And so hopefully, you know, that will make a positive difference as well in terms of developing that mental resilience and cultivating mental well-being, which I think needs to be on all of our agendas as we emerge from the pandemic and we, you know, enter this new world. Habits about social media, for example, are going to be a big thing for me. You know, talking about the importance of having real world interactions and finding your validation and, you know, success in the real world, not just on social media, not just through your smartphone screen. So yes, that's just another little thought on what I want to be doing. What I will do now then, I thought, sorry this video could have been a bit more organised, couldn't it? But here we are, guys. We're here now. One thing that I wanted to talk to you about then is the process for getting here, you know. So how did I end up taking on this role? So what happened is the school that I'm at, where I was placed originally by Teach First, had a system of a director of Key Stage 3 and a director of Key Stage 4. So the school had previously had heads of year, but then that became a director of Key Stage 3 and a director of Key Stage 4 role, and then also a director of Key Stage 5 role, so a head of sixth form. But the school decided that they wanted to bring back the head of year roles, and so obviously that opportunity arose. So I wrote my letter of application over it must have been the May half-term holiday, I think. So I wrote my letter of application, and then I was invited to the interview day. So there were 3 tasks that we had to complete. The first one was to present to members of the senior leadership team what your top 3 priorities would be as head of year 7. So you had to prepare a short 5-minute presentation on what your top 3 priorities would be if you were the head of year 7. So what 3 things would you do in your first term? So that was the first task. That was then followed by a short interview with those SLT members. The second task then was a student panel, which is where students were then obviously asking you questions about why you'd applied for the role and what you would do in the role. And then the third element of the process was a data task. So we then had to go into a SLT office, and they had printed off on A3 paper all of the data for one of the year groups, and it was then your job to write down what your priorities would be and what questions you would have on your first day as head of year, basically, if you had this data to work with. And so, you know, you had to sort through the data and be identifying, you know, any causes for concern, any trends, you know, anything that you thought needed to then be a priority. So basically asking you, how would you use the data in order to inform your priorities as head of year? So 3 different tasks there that were carried out over the course of a day, and then the next day it was, you know, X Factor style, the results were in. And honestly, I cannot tell you, it was just the best news to hear. I think for me, you know, as I say, I went into teaching to make the maximum difference possible, and I feel like this is a calling, if I can put it like that. I really do feel that this is, you know, meant to be, in terms of I want to make this difference. There is an amazing team of teachers who are already making that difference at the school, and you know, I'm really passionate, really enthusiastic, in case you can't tell, to start this role, and especially considering the year group. You know, I really see so much potential in this year group, and I want them all to be the very best that they can be. I want them to fulfill their full potentials and go out into the world in a few years' time and be the very, very best, you know, that they can be, but also the very best in the country. I'm really ambitious for them, and I have the highest standards and expectations for them as well, you know. So I'm really excited to see what they go on to achieve, and to support them and to lead a team in supporting them on this really exciting journey. You know, I mean, a big thing for me is on, as you've maybe picked up, the people that they become. You know, yes, okay, the results that they achieve are very important, of course, in order to open doors for them, but also it's about the people that they become, you know, that they become confident, kind, resilient, ambitious young people who have, you know, a real sense of what's the word that I'm now looking for? They have a real sense of honourable purpose. That's what I'm going to use. I like that phrase, that they've got a real sense of honourable purpose, you know, that they know who they are, and they know that they can make a really positive difference in this world. So yes, what's next then? Well, we've got a couple of priorities as this term comes to an end. So I've got an assembly with the year group, which will be happening on the last Monday, which is kind of a transition assembly, if you see what I mean. So I will be setting out to them that I expect greatness from them, and I'll be talking them through, not of course that will be a surprise to 4 of the classes who I already teach, but it's, you know, important to then engage the other 3 classes as well and make it clear to them that I will have very high expectations of them so that they can achieve great things. I'm also going to set up for them a little summer assignment, as I'm calling it, which is to find and prepare a presentation on someone who inspires them to achieve greatness. So that could be, you know, a footballer like Marcus Rashford. That could be a public figure like, who can we think of? Malala, for example. Remember her winning the Nobel Peace Prize. It could be someone they know, a parent, a grandparent, for example. But I'm going to set them the challenge of producing a 5-minute presentation on someone who inspires them to achieve greatness. And within that, I want them to include what that person has done, how they've achieved greatness, and how they can learn from them, you know, what they've inspired them to do. Because I think it's really important that we establish for our young people today strong, inspiring role models. I think there are a lot of negative influences on social media, stating the obvious again, I know, and so I think it's really important to say, right, we need to find some inspiring role models who are going to motivate and set the standard for our young people in schools today. So I want my students, as I say, to identify those role models over the summer, to learn from them and prepare that presentation so they can come back in September and actually present that to their peers. You know, I'm thinking in form time, that might be a nice thing to do, because of course that will then help develop public speaking skills as well. Oracy is so important, isn't it, that our students feel confident public speaking, articulating themselves in front of an audience. I think that's such an important skill that I really do want to instill within my students, within my year group, as I, you know, strive to develop the most, as I term it here, resilient, ambitious and successful cohort of students that the school has ever seen, you know, grounded in my belief that every child deserves an outstanding education, and of course that every child deserves to be championed. So yes, we've got the assembly coming up to set out my high expectations for them choosing greatness, and also my expectations in terms of professionalism as a whole. You know, that frankly, if you have if you have acquired more than 6 detentions in the previous year, that is unsatisfactory and that needs to change. You know, no student should ever be acquiring more than 6 detentions in an entire year. You know, we can understand that maybe 1 week you'll forget your PE kit, maybe 1 week you might be late to school because of transport issues. You know, we can understand that. But if you're acquiring more than 6 detentions in a year, and I call this my rule of 6, what that tells me is that, you know, you're not consciously learning from those mistakes that have been made, and so that is not acceptable in my opinion. So we are going to really push on that, this idea of a rule of 6, which I think was to do with the COVID pandemic, wasn't it? That was one of the government regulations. So, you know, a bit triggering, that term, but we're gonna rebrand it. We're gonna rebrand it in terms of a rule of 6 for behaviour expectations. And I'm going to show the students some data on that actually, in terms of who has met that rule of 6 in this year and who hasn't. And I've also got a letter to parents which is going out in the school's bulletin. So the heads of year have all written a short piece for parents introducing themselves in their new roles. And also there will be a parents information evening at the start of the year as well, when I'll be able to actually meet with the parents face to face alongside the new head teacher. But actually, again, really fortunately, I've met most of the parents already because I've taught their child either as their form tutor or their RE teacher this year, and the parents are so lovely, and you know, we have this common interest in their child being their very best and fulfilling their full potential. So that is a brilliant opportunity to look forwards to as well. When I was at school, our school called it Parents as Partners, and I think that's something I might have to actually put into action as well, because it's a great mantra that, you know, really represents the importance of that homeschool relationship, doesn't it? But yes, I will be setting out to parents and students my expectation that they will choose greatness. And the primary focuses I'm going to have in September are going to be on punctuality, they are going to be on uniform, and they are going to be behaviour. they are sort of my 3 priorities in terms of what I want students to take responsibility for in September. That they are at every lesson on time, that they are dressed for success, as I like to call it. You know, I don't want any hoodies on in school. And also, thirdly, I want them to make sure their behaviour is, you know, brilliant, that they are respecting everybody, they are following instructions first time, every time, and that they are engaging positively in every lesson. And I will be running around the school, I have no doubt, checking that that is happening in every classroom. So yes, I am really excited to be taking on this role, in case you haven't picked that up, and I will, you know, really strive to share with you here on YouTube sort of the messages that I'm sharing with my students, you know, all of the ideas about greatness and growth mindset. Hopefully I'll be able to share some of those here on YouTube as well. But yes, thank you for watching. If you are still watching, you deserve a prize for enduring my ramblings today, but I did want to share that news with you. So thank you for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful summer, whatever you have got planned and whatever you'll be up to, and I'll see you very soon. Take care. Bye bye.